So if you don't know me, I'm Mike. I founded the Ontario Overland YouTube channel, the Facebook group. I've been doing this for quite a few years now. Been all over the province. It's a very big province, and you'll learn that with Crown land when looking for it. There's like just really not a lot in Southern Ontario, but there's a little bit if you look hard enough to find it. So in this presentation, I'm basically going to be going over like what is Crown land.
That's literally Port Alliance.
It is. That is the Port Alliance Highway. Yeah, it's one of the most gorgeous spots along that route. Just running the river. Yeah, it's just great. Basically, what you can do on Crown land besides camping, like it's a lot of general recreating that kind of goes along with what we all enjoy. The Crown Land Atlas from the Ministry, kind of just going to go over a brief explanation and how to use it to find Crown land that's suitable for camping. There's a couple different apps like iHunter and the Backroad Mapbooks app that's now had a big revamp, and I think everybody that's here has got a free 30-day trial for it, so it's worth checking out. Yeah, and of course, like once you get out there, what we can do to help keep it public and keep it open and accessible. Oh, and forced access roads, because that's what we do is we drive to get there, so we're not hiking through the woods. I mean, not all the time, but so Crown land is all like it's public land. It's technically it's like owned by the Queen, but that goes from way back when. You can see like there's 80, almost 90% of Northern Ontario is Crown land. So all that green is public land. All the red, which is pretty much all of Southern Ontario, is all private. That's why it's so hard to find Crown land in Southern Ontario, but it does exist, just in different forms, like conservation areas where we are. I've been basically turned over to the municipalities to do what they want with it. So that's why we're all paying to be here, and they are paid to maintain it, keep it pretty and open to us. But that's all the kind of stuff you can do on Crown land when you're there. Obviously, fishing and hunting. There's seasons, there's licenses, there's tags involved with hunting especially. There's an ATV, snowmobiling, off-roading. It's a great place for all of that and doing all the stuff that we love to enjoy.
I'd like to add one activity to that. I always take my long guns and do target practice.
Yeah, but there is like target shooting is a great spot. Yeah. Or a great thing to do.
On that point, are there certain rules in certain areas?
There are certain like basically wildlife protection zones that they don't allow any kind of firearm discharge, even like a crossbow or a compound bow. Yeah. So camping on Crown land, you barely see the sign there, but when you see one of those signs, you know you're in the right spot, because it's basically warning the Americans that, hey, you're supposed to get a permit to come here and catch our walleye. You can camp up to 21 days as a resident of Ontario on Crown land for free. You just have to move, I think it's 30, 50 meters down the road after 21 days, and then you can keep camping pretty much indefinitely as long as you're moving, but you can only be in one specific site for 21 days. And that's all enforced under the Public Lands Act, so people that do get caught kind of more squatting on Crown land, we are seeing more charges now that it is becoming more popular.
Especially since COVID.
Yes, since the last couple of years, that's why this has exploded the way it has. Everybody wants to be a little bit more close to home. And the Crown Land Atlas is not great. If you played with it, you know exactly what I mean, because, I mean, hell, it's provided by the government, so we can't expect too much. But to access the Atlas, you'll just have to click on the thing that says use the Atlas. But when you get there, it's pretty intimidating to look at for the first time, because you just see the whole province. The lightly colors there, that's all Crown land, but I mean you can zoom in to the area you're looking at to find Crown land more in depth. Because as you zoom in, you can see pretty much where the cutoff is on the majority of Crown land around the Bracebridge, Huntsville area. From there north, that's where you're going to start to see more consistent Crown land. Find Crown land, you want to look at the map layers tab at the top to first kind of understand what the different colors mean. For the most part, we're looking at the general use areas, the forest reserves, and the enhanced management areas. Those are pretty much the go-to for the general recreation of Crown land that includes camping. So this was, I started putting this together when we had the previous spot up near Creemore that this event was going to take place at. So just in that area, using the colors, you can see that there's a provincial park. There's a small little plot circled in yellow of general use, and then the federal land, which is the base. But that small little plot of Crown land, you can easily find like what you're allowed to do there by hitting the Find Information button at the top of the atlas, and then that'll get you over to the land use information. Then from there, all you have to do is basically click on that parcel that you want, and that'll bring you up to be able to access the policy report. And with the policy report, you can easily find out what's allowed and what's not allowed there. It'll give you a lot of different options to see, such as who's kind of in control, like if there's a municipality in control.
I don't think I do any target practice at that one next to the base.
No, probably not a good idea. A lot of it, like even though like on the different policy reports, you'll see like the land use intent. That's where you're going to find out where your target shooting is allowed and stuff like that. If it's, I mean, that's rare. I don't even think there's many like strict wildlife protection zones in Ontario. I think it's more out west. I haven't come across any, but mainly like the land use intents are going to be either they're saving it for recreation for us, or for protection of the forest in some cases, or they want people to go to those areas to log, to mine, and use those resources. But breaking down the policy report, the first bit at the top mainly is for the commercial industry, so fur trapping, timber harvest, mining, hydro development, and fishing. The next bit is the land and resource management activities. This is where it talks about like the roads that we're going to be using, right? So like road development, we're not going to go out and build roads on Crown land, but the timber companies are, and the government will pay the timber companies to build these roads. They don't pay them to deactivate the roads, so they remain public for us to use. But we are allowed to maintain those roads, so if there's a washout, a lot of the camp owners and recreators that are local to the area and use them all the time will come out and volunteer to fix those washouts, replace bridges and culverts, but they're all paying for that out of pocket or doing fundraisers and stuff like that. But this one right here is what you want to look for when finding out if you can camp there. It's the Crown Land Recreation. That's pretty much, if it says that you're free to recreate on this Crown Land parcel, it's pretty much fair game for camping. The only exception is going to be if it's a municipality. They might decide that it's a problem area and close it to camping, but that won't be updated on the atlas, unfortunately. Yeah.
Sorry, I missed this. Where do we find this information?
So on the ontario.ca website, there's a Crown Land page on there. You can also just go to ontario.ca/Crownland, and there's all the information there on Crown Land, and the kind of, big link that takes you right to the atlas. A little bit clunky when using the atlas to find because it starts popping up stuff in the background, so if you have a pop-up blocker, it might not show up. I know a lot of people have run into that. But one little tip I did find recently with the atlas is because looking at a normal topo map isn't very helpful for finding a great spot, maybe a little hidden road, hidden campsite. You can easily go back up to the map layers, and there's a nice little layers tab that they've added in the last year, and you can select the Ontario imagery, which is actually more up to date than Google Maps. Now you get a nice satellite view, and
that was shit less.
yeah, it was horrible, and it took forever to load. Now it's a little smoother now, and you can zoom in really close. Like this is that spot out near Creemore, right beside the base, and I didn't even know until looking at this. Oh, I've been there. Like there's a little road access across from this guy's driveway, and drove down there. It's an OFSC trail in the wintertime, and there's lots of areas there for to easily access the land. Not sure I'd want to camp there because, again, being right next to the base and the subdivision right down the road and a guy lives across the road, it's kind of going to be a judgment call when you see these little parcels in southern Ontario of whether, am I going to get hassled even though I have the right to be here, or should I just look somewhere else? Aside from the atlas, there's two really good apps for finding Crown land. iHunter is a pretty expensive way to do it. Like the app is free, and you have to unlock each province. So if you're just staying in Ontario, it's $34.99 a month, or a year. Sorry, a month would be a little bit too expensive for me. But that does give you all the access to their public lands layers, all their satellite imagery, and then all the functionality of most of the other GPS apps that we use. You can drop waypoints, you can make tracks. The best thing about iHunter is that you can get the policy reports on the go on your phone as long as you have service, no matter where you are. And it's got the cacheable satellite and topo maps and road maps as well. So you can just download them if you know you're not going to be in service and you just want to explore a little around you. But since it is geared to hunters, it does have all the season details for big game, small game, birds. All the wildlife management units are pretty visible. That's what all the numbers are on the map. But that just goes to show you the little bit of color, and it's very similar to the Atlas in terms of, you know, the provincial crown land is the general use, so the purple is what we're looking for when using iHunter. General use and the enhanced management areas are quite visible in iHunter.
Sorry,
Yeah.
What's patented crown land? I saw that layer option.
Yeah. Of course, it restarts. Oh no. I'm pretty sure that's like leased land, like for hunt camps and stuff like that.
Yeah, I see it.
Because they're all really small. So that might be somebody that already has a mining claim or something like that, or a timber claim.
Okay.
But I think that's the majority of it. I haven't really come across too many of them in the areas that I've looked at. But because like iHunter is province-wide, they do use the same terminology for Alberta and BC, which have a completely different public land system than we do. But the best thing about it is the fact that you get the policy report, and you can see right at the top for Crown Land Recreation, most of the spots are going to be available. And obviously people, since it is geared to hunters, want to just check it quick and be like, okay, there's the green I'm looking for, I can hunt here and carry on, but everything else is there. Backroad map books, I haven't really played around with it, but I will be now that we all got the free trial. But so normally, it's got a nice tier subscription, so it's a little bit easier if you're just using it for a couple months of the year rather than all year. It does show private crown land as well. It's got the points of interest that we all love from like the paper maps or on their app. Yeah, their app has all the same waypoints as the paper maps, I believe. It's got all the hiking, ATV, snowmobile trails, searchable waypoints. So if you're looking for a nice hiking or ATV trail that they have marked as a point of interest, you can just search it and it should pop up there as long as it's in their database. It's got the same road classifications that we've all gotten used to if you use the paper maps. And this is the only picture I could find of like the crown land examples from Backroad Map Books, which is of course out in Alberta. So it means nothing to us, but you can see all the little green squares is how you find the crown land on there. And they have the same kind of color coordinated chart off to the side to help you determine which is crown land and which is private. But unfortunately, it doesn't allow you to view the policy reports. So if in Ontario it's just all green is crown land, that doesn't tell you if it's leased crown land for like a timber operation or a hunt camp. So if you show up there and then all of a sudden there's a bunch of timber equipment, now you need a whole nother plan. So it's not the greatest for planning I've found. I'm going to look into a bit more and kind of do like another video like I've done with the iHunter app, kind of explaining the whole thing and going through the process as I learn it as well. So we'll see that in the future. The big thing is like crown land etiquette is how we're going to keep these crown lands accessible to all of us and future generations as well. So another campsite literally steps from Highway 17 on Lake Superior. Like you'd never even know looking at the picture that you've got a row of transport trucks zipping behind you, but you don't even hear them. It's crazy in that area. But the best thing we can do is like just pick an existing campsite, something that's got a fire ring, that's well established, has been used, so we're not creating more campsites. Obviously, like, you want to clean up the site as soon as you get there. If you see any garbage, it's more than likely relatively recent because animals don't seem to leave garbage in one spot very long. They like to drag it through the bush. Overcrowding campsites is another big issue. Like some of the more popular spots, like I'm sure everybody's heard of Ardbeg. And there's a couple other spots up north where people just park their trailers for pretty much the whole summer.
Yeah, Ranger Camp Road
Yeah.
Outside of Ottawa used to be a great spot, and since 2020, there's people have moved their. It's a reasonably accessible road, so people's camper trailers are there.
Yeah.
And to skirt around the 21-day rule, they just swap spots.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Like they're all in
I've seen the
cahoots.
same trailers there every year the last 2 years.
Yeah, there's a couple like non-operating provincial parks is another thing that because they've been cleared, or whether they were active provincial parks in the past or they were planned to be and they never got the funding or whatever.
Yeah, Huey too.
Yeah, there's that, and there's Aubrey Falls up south of Chapleau. You go up there and it's just a village of trailers. And it's created nothing but problems, and people want to get up there to enjoy it, and you can't even find a site because they're literally like, here's the road, there's a trailer here, there's a trailer here. It's like driving through a small street in Toronto. But obviously, when the ministry sees stuff like that, that just gives them a reason to kind of crack down and close these sites and limit access to them. Using a portable fire pit is something we've been doing for the last couple of years, because the communal fire pits that are on Crown land, you just don't know what's been in them. Especially if you're cooking on it, you don't want to be, the last people were there burning their garbage and their dirty diapers and whatever else.
I had a bullet to cook off in a
I've heard that happen for a couple people too.
Scariest thing ever.
But it's
so
also
I dig out the fire pits now.
Yeah, but it's also going to prevent people from having to dig out the fire pits. And unfortunately, when they do that, most people just leave it off to the side, and you just get a big mound that doesn't look good and it's full of burnt whatever. But it also, like, if there isn't a fire pit there and you have a portable fire pit, you're all done. You throw the ash well away into the bush, and it looks like nobody was there. So for the next people, it's just going to look like a great site, and they don't drive through the fire pit and get a nail in their tire like I've done. But the biodegradable soaps, pretty much now everybody is using biodegradable soaps anyway at home. So continuing that practice in the bush is a great way to not pollute the water and seeping into the ground and polluting the groundwater as well. So it's just a great practice to keep everything clean. And the nice topic. So obviously the more these sites get used, the more evidence pops up of people just not really knowing what to do with their waste. They just kind of go off in the bush, drop trowel, finish their business, wipe, and leave these nice little cotton plants everywhere. Most toilet paper doesn't break down, like it's maybe like 5 to 10 years, depending on the area. So we just we prefer, like myself and the people I go with, we all use just little portable toilets. They're called Clean Waste. Clean Waste is the company. It's out of the States. It's a great heavy duty toilet. You just drop in those little Lugaloo reseal or triple seal bags, and you pack it out with you. You throw it in the trash bag and drop it off at the next spot you can. But I mean, there's no harm in going into the bush, digging a little cat hole, popping a squat, getting it done that way.
Yeah, and if
and
you use
then
the
burying
RV
it.
toilet paper,
Yes.
RV toilet
Yeah,
paper,
single ply is
gone.
the best you can do for that. It's gone.
Yeah, and it sounds
Matter of
gross,
weeks.
but when I camp, I got a couple like nice little private spots that aren't very often used, and I've been going there for years. And out of curiosity, I have to admit, I went and dug where I had to go the year before, and there was zero sign of anything, thankfully. And so, yeah, the RV toilet paper definitely is good if you're digging a cat hole and burying it back up.
Yeah.
I have a little Ziploc bag. It's got the biodegradable baby wipes, toilet paper, all of that stuff. So it's a nice, clean way of doing it.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to do it as well. Alternatively to digging a hole, find a nice big rock, flip it over, flip it back over. Nobody would know you're there. And then, of course, before you leave, just do a huge walk around of the entire campsite, pick up anything that you may, even though the wind took it off the table. It's just nice to come into a site as the next person and just see it completely cared for, and of course looks even better to any conservation officer that might be driving by and saw you the night before and now has seen a bunch of garbage and thinks, oh, these 4x4 guys or these ATVers, just, we don't want them here anymore. So that just leads to more problems down the road when it continues. So we all got to do our part. And of course, there's a lot of animals in the bush. I've been very fortunate and haven't had any interactions, but I think it's mainly because of the way we camp. We keep everything clean. So not feeding the wildlife is obviously a great way to not have wildlife interactions or negative wildlife interactions, because animals are creatures of habit. We've all seen it with our dogs, their cats. They know when they're going to get fed. So if they know where their food is, chances are they're going to keep coming back, and the next person doesn't have food. They might take offense to that and decide to be a little aggressive. But looking for sign around the campsite before you get there, like garbage strewn everywhere out of a bag, it's a pretty good sign that the animals are going to frequent this area, because again, they know to come back. They know where their meal is going to be. They're just as lazy as us. They'll take a free meal. And the food scraps, as soon as you're done with them, either burn them or put them in your trash bag. Like, most of us have our trash bags on spare tire or something like that, and I've noticed animals don't really like the smell of vehicles, so they don't seem to come that close because they're just not sure what it is. But obviously the safest bet is leaving the trash bag inside your vehicle overnight, if you have room, or if you don't mind a little bit of a smell when you get in there the next time. Trick. So firewood, you can collect the firewood on Crown land without a permit, as long as you're using it for camping. If you want to go and collect firewood on a Crown land for, burning at home, or you can just take back with you, you do need a permit.
And you can only transport it so far.
I believe so, yeah, that's right, all those new rules with the ash beetles. Yeah, but cutting live trees, there's no reason for it, because they're just not going to burn. And there's no point aside from just, removing habitat unwantedly. And of course, you can get charged for cutting down live trees as well. The standing dead trees are going to be your best bet for collecting firewood. It's pretty easy to identify this time of year when a tree is dead, but if you're not sure, there's a lot of great videos out there on YouTube about checking a little bit of bark and seeing how dead it is, or if it could come back or whatever. But it's going to be a judgment call and experience for that. But the best spot I've found to look for are the reject piles on logging roads. The loggers will dump a lot of wood there, and they take maybe a third of it. And the rest of it is either too short, cracked, knotted, stuff they can't use, stumps. You get a chainsaw and you just take whatever you need. And there's lots of them on logging roads. And the best thing you can do is leave a little bit for the next guy. There's nothing like coming in to a campsite in the pouring rain and seeing a small pile of dry firewood under a pile of boughs or rocks. It's just there, ready to go, and it just makes that trip that was so depressing just that much happier to have a nice fire to kind of warm and dry up. But definitely, if you come across that, do the same for the next people. Just keep it rolling, and hopefully it's something we'll all kind of adopt. And of course, that's the dreaded question when you're looking at Crown land and you have a spot of your dreams that, like, you get there and somebody else is set up. But unfortunately, Crown land is first come, first serve, and it belongs to all of us, so we have to respect the people that unfortunately may have just ruined our trip for us in our eyes, but in their eyes, they're having a great time. So I've met a lot of great people, like just stumbling into them on the campsite, or they come in when we're set up, chat for a bit, and they're cool with us setting up here for a night or two, or we're cool with them, vice versa. We're all out there, kind of the same kind of people. Like, this event has kind of proven it. Everybody's been super great and super helpful. So I'd camp with any of you if you just randomly stumbled into us in the bush. And I think all of us are out there to do the same thing and just enjoy nature.
Generally, locals are always really great and asking you questions about your rig and giving you good fishing spots to go to and stuff. So
that's the local knowledge is definitely key. Like, you don't see it down here in southern Ontario anymore, but you go up north to like these small gas bars and small coffee shops. You go in there, and there's always a group of old guys sitting in the corner. And you just walk up and start talking to them. And, oh yeah, we've been logging this area for 30 years. We know it like the back of our hands, and they'll just give them the map, and they'll be pointing out lakes and telling, there's a little trail that goes to that, a little trail that goes here. So the forest access roads, because we're all driving to get there, so it's what we like to do. And they're going to be fairly tame for the most part, especially when they're being used. You can run across some really nasty washouts in the spring. Like the spring runoff up north is no joke. It will take a 8-foot tall culvert and push it and the road 100 feet downstream. You're always going to want to have your head on a swivel when you're traveling on the forest access roads, because a lot of guys are up there working as well. They're not just up there recreating, it's their job. But 90% of the forest access roads are public because, as I said earlier, the government pays logging companies and mining companies to put these roads in. They don't pay them to take them out, so the loggers just they might pull up a bridge, but it's usually replaced by users of culvert very quickly, keep it open and accessible. Logging traffic and hydro traffic with that too always has the right of way, and their chances are, since they're working, they're not going to stop for you. So the best bet is just to always keep a sensible speed, keep the dust down. You can't see, you slow down. Keeping to the right on hills and corners, like I said, the logging trucks, they're not going to stop for you. So the further over right you are and you see them in the last second, that way you can kind of skirt off the road and let them continue on, and they'll definitely appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I've got a picture of my truck in exactly that same spot. It's the same tree, that bare tree, right in the middle.
Yeah, you can kind of see them. There were 2 logging trucks. We followed them for that whole 100-kilometer range. I did have my UHF VHF radio and their logging frequency. I was trying to hail them and get them to pull over. They just wouldn't acknowledge us, and they kept going. So it made for a very long 100 kilometers. But, I mean, the safest place to be on a logging road is behind a logging truck.
Yeah, not oncoming.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're interested in getting your license for VHF radio or UHF radio, I highly recommend looking into the amateur radio clubs and getting it, because most of these forest access roads, the signs at the start of them are going to have the individual frequencies, and that just allows you to communicate with them, and you also hear them chattering so you know where they are.
Did you, was it you or Jason was it a YouTube clinic or something about?
No, there was it was BC.
Oh, that's right.
I've shared it a couple times. Yeah, the BC guys did a great video with the forest guys to like kind of educate people of these are this is our workplace. Like, here's how to properly call out. Like there's kilometer numbers all along these forest access roads, and you're calling out. Either you're traveling up or down at this mile marker, and if you can hear them, chances are they're close enough to hear you, and close enough to be a problem as well.
And this road
they
specifically, Portalance Road becomes Friar Road and goes all the way between Sudbury and Shining Tree, and then continues on to Timmins.
Yeah.
It can be very dangerous. Those blind corners, these guys coming around.
There's some good stretches of straight flat road that are 5-10 kilometers, and those guys are going faster than any truck on the 401 should even be going.
I've been run right into the bush.
Do not stop. Yeah, I've run into ditches.
Yeah, so that is something that if you don't have radio communications, take your time when you're going up there. Don't be discouraged to go up there, but just keep right. Take your time over blind hills and blind bends, and you'll be fine.
Turn the music off.
Don't put the music on because you can hear them coming.
Oh yes.
And if one passes you, there's so much dust, it might be a little bit of dust. So take your time. It's about 40 kilometers of that for above Sudbury, and then it becomes single track, and there's nothing oncoming other than maybe an ATV. But
any time where you get to a spot where the road is wide, you know that they are logging recently or actively are. Like, they will pick an area for maybe a year to 3 years and log that area and then move on to another area. So it's constantly changing, and unfortunately there's really no way for us to find out where they are aside from talking to some of the old local guys and stuff like that. It's definitely actually a really good idea when you get to an area you're not familiar with, is stopping into some of these little restaurants and looking for that old bunch of guys eating their breakfast.
And quite often
they
there's
love
a
to talk.
sign at the beginning of the road saying active logging in progress.
Yeah.
Use your head.
Yeah.
And the radio channel quite often.
Yes, yeah. That's the big key about those signs. And this is probably my favorite quote when it comes to public land in general. If anybody is familiar with the Meat Eater guys, they have a show on Netflix. Everybody knows Ryan Callahan. He's a huge public lands activist in the U.S., and I just heard him on his little weekly podcast that he does about news about public land and all around the world. and it's you can't say it any better than that. Just don't litter. Like that's what keeps it accessible and open to all of us. Now I'll take any kind of question that you guys can think of. I'll try to answer it. Oh, not you. All right.
So we're all here with different kinds of vehicles.
Yes.
You do a huge amount of mileage in your FJ Cruiser.
Yeah.
Is it the right overland rig for you to get off into Crown Land? Are you thinking about doing something different?
Well, right, like for me, it is a great vehicle. It's small. I would never recommend it for any more than 2 people. Like a family, there's no way. For a single traveler or a couple, it's a great option. Just the same as like the small Jeeps, like the 2-door Jeeps. You don't have a lot of storage, but I mean, anybody that stopped by and seen my setup today, I've got it dialed down, but that's taken almost 10 years. Like of doing this and and trial and error and spending a lot of money that I didn't need to spend to do these kind of things. But there might be some changes in the future. I'm looking at a couple different options. The full size with the camper is a beautiful option for me. Van conversions, like 4-wheel drive van, has always been something I've loved, and that's.
So when do you post up all your waypoints for all your fans?
It's something I've wrestled with for years. Like, it's one of those things where, like, that geotagging has become a problem to a point where a lot of spots have been closed because of that, and just they've been overused.
Yeah.
We've all been to our bag, I think.
Now, one thing, if you don't mind me
go ahead.
speaking
Sure.
on your behalf, because we've been doing this so long
Yep.
on the Ontario Overland Facebook group is very active among the Overland group. Is growing every day. It's going to go huge in the coming weeks, I'm sure. One of the things is everyone is saying, hey, I need a place to camp. Can you post up places for me to camp? We're going on a weekend trip. And nobody likes to share. Like there's certain times, like I've even when I started traveling to Ottawa regularly, I thought, there's some Crown Land I can find. And I was like, just give me a general area to find, and that was good. I'm not looking for your campsite, and so don't ask like, can I get your coordinates? If someone's nice enough to privately DM a location, or maybe a good compromise is maybe asking, is anyone willing to DM me a spot? I promise I won't share it, especially if you're someone that is pretty active in the forums, that even though you're not going to post it up everywhere, then that's acceptable. But the whole point of Mike being here is and part of the adventure is finding out that spot that you found on the map yourself is that special gem, right? Mm-hmm. And you won't see another living soul there for 3 days. It's great. Yeah. So that's what makes this whole adventure and overlanding special. Yeah. Is do it yourself. Like when
that's pretty much why I started doing this.
Where can I camp on Crown Land? Give me a spot, and people will. It sounds rude when you say do it yourself, or they'll post up a link to Google Maps.
Yeah.
Like it's honestly it's. We're trying to push you out of the nest.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
And discover it yourself, because this whole we're all here for discovery.
Yeah.
So
that's the fun in it.
Yeah, that's exactly why I started with the YouTube channel and doing some of the more educational content. Was like I have an insane amount of fun planning these trips, and I'm always on my phone looking through Gaia and being like, ooh, that looks like a cool campsite, drop a pin. Ooh, that looks like a cool campsite. I've got thousands of pins of spots I want to check out.
Or
and
of course,
just about looking. Like,
of course, on the highway going.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder where that goes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that.
We had a question at the back.
Yeah, go ahead.
So just sort of paralleling on that thought.
Yeah.
Being here in Southern Ontario, you said there's not much around.
Yeah.
But is there still enough out there that we can look at the southern area here?
It's
weekend trips versus 579.
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I mean, it's there's not a lot that's suitable for camping because it's very small parcels, like less than an acre small, and the majority of them are used by hunters for like mainly small game and stuff like that, and hiking and.
But we can. So you guys are suggesting that even though it's like for weekends.
Yeah.
Getting up north.
Definitely to the at least the Perry Sound area. Yeah.
Yeah, French River.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have more options. That, you know, even in that area, there's going to be a lot bigger parcels of land, and there's going to be some timber activity. So there's going to be roads present that you can travel down. Yep.
The biggest trade-off with it is the further south you stay, you're walking for a short drive just to get there. There's a lot more other people, right?
Yes.
So the more north you go, the better chances you're going to have that nice spot by Little Lake, no one around for 3 days, and you just enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
And you'll experience it, and it'll happen. You're driving down the road, thinking you're going to go to the spot, and there's already a car sitting there. And then you go down another, like, 2K down the road, and there's another car sitting
Yeah.
there. Right? So the further north you go, you have better chances of getting some nice
Yeah.
spots.
And it goes for the same thing. Like, as the easier it is to accessible, more people are going to be there by chance, right? Like, that's why you get some spots right off the highway, and trailers are parked there all year long because they can get there very easily. They live in the city close by, and unfortunately, it's a site gone.
I
But
think
yes,
we had one
yep,
more question there.
yep.
Yes, so I just had a question, like, have you guys ever had, like, heard of any problems, like, with, like, single women going out and having problems, or is it relatively safe?
I personally haven't heard any problems about it here in Ontario, but
Crownland Camp.
yeah, there is the group there.
Yeah.
It's like anything else. I mean, not to throw you off, but there's a risk involved in
Yeah.
everything. There was a guy. Chances are you're going to have more problems in a Walmart parking lot than you would the middle of the bush. But even that, there was some guy not too long ago that posted in our Ontario Overland Facebook group. He got assaulted sleeping in his car in the Killarney Park, and it's just, you never know, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's, it doesn't matter male or female. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just obviously you have a bit of an exit strategy. I mean, obviously it's different when it's a ground tent or even a
Yes.
rooftop tent. A lot of women embrace the van life culture because
Yes.
they can be asleep, and if someone starts banging on the door, they can just run to the front of their vehicle and drive
Yeah.
off. Right? They'll blow the horn if there's other people
Yeah,
inside.
that's definitely all about, you know.
But I mean, we're talking crazy Americans.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear crazy stories
Oh,
there.
yes.
We don't hear those crazy stories
No.
up in Canada. Western Canada, there's been some interesting incidents
Mhm.
in BC, but like we've been active on these forums for
Yeah.
like me almost 10 years.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been anything really scary that's made me think twice about it.
No.
You know, you might get a rowdy partiers.
That's yeah.
Probably the worst case scenario is probably just rowdiness, you know. But you know, if you don't like it, move.
Yeah, it's always going to be a judgment call and based on everybody's own personality and where you feel safe.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Especially if you're in an area where there is a group and you don't feel safe, trust your instincts.
Yeah.
That's all, the best thing you can ever do. Yep.
You showed the Atlas legend there with all
Yep.
the listing of different types of land.
Yes.
And obviously private and public parks
Yep.
are kind of like a no-go. Any other out of the gate?
Not really. Like provincial parks and conservation areas, like where we are here, they were like Crown land at one point, and then the ministry came in and said, you know, we want this as just a natural space because it's close to citizens and stuff like that. So they've turned it over to the municipalities to do what they want to do with it. Or in the terms of provincial parks, they've turned that over to the provincial government at a federal level, and they manage it. And that's why those have become, you know, you pay to camp there. But yeah, aside from that, no, the other ones are pretty much all fair game. It's just mainly checking to see what is actually permitted there, and that's where the policy report comes in super handy. Yep.
Like on the general use areas, what are
Yep.
like some of the red flags that have popped up in terms of using, like, that would be like, I don't want to go there kind of thing? Is there any?
Not really. I mean, it like some general use areas are like 100,000 acres.
Right.
Like the one that I showed near Creemore, that might be kind of, you bring it up on Google Earth or somewhere with a satellite and be like, okay, well, there's somebody that lives across the road. It's an open field. He's probably just gonna call, you know, some kind of law enforcement to check it. Like, why are these guys camping here? He might not even know it's Crown land. But aside from that, no, it's mainly just like, you really don't know until you get out there, right? Like, a lot of it's blind. You can do some scouting online, like with Google Maps and stuff like that, to get get an idea of what's in the area. But no, they're definitely a great place to look. Yep. You first.
So how up to date is the Atlas online?
So the Atlas is pretty up to date. A lot of the stuff they don't change that often. Like you'll look at some of the policy reports, and the policy report is as old as the Public Lands Act itself, just because the land hasn't changed. And especially the stuff, the further north you go, that's going to be, you're going to see stuff like that has never been changed. The land use is just, that's what it's intended for, and that's what they want to tell. Well, we're no longer here.
So if they shut down a spot, they'll mark it on there?
Unfortunately, not normally. Like there's been a couple spots where just with the amount of use that they've seen in the last couple of years, they've just, the municipalities especially, have just come in and said that we just don't want people camping here because we don't want to deal with the complaints, we don't want to deal with the cleanup, all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, yeah, you might run into a couple of things like that. It's rare, but it does happen, and that's why I always like to have a backup.
Are some of those areas would be posted?
Which one, sorry?
Those areas that the municipalities are closed would be posted, I'm assuming?
Normally they'd be posted at like the actual location.
Yeah,
not on the Atlas or stuff like that. The odd time, I'd like to say they're updating it frequently, but I don't think they are. Just because it's the government, it's how they work. But
it does pull from the actual data source that uses just how much resources they put into updating.
Pretty much.
How often you run into forest or Ontario truck out?
Yeah, like a conservation officer. Yeah,
it's pretty rare.
It is rare. Yeah, we've rarely actually come. We've come in across more OPP on ATVs than an actual conservation officer. Most of them are always chasing down hunting violations. They can't be bothered with the Crown land aspect, but it's. I mean, they do still monitor it. Like we actually saw a conservation officer there taking and marking the tires where they hit the ground, so they could come back in a couple weeks and be like, okay, this guy hasn't moved. He's clearly been here more than 21 days. Now we're going to be dropping in to talk to him about that kind of thing. So it does happen. Like, you had a question? Yep.
Yeah, so winter versus summer access on some of the trails due to sleds. What's your thoughts on that?
So in southern Ontario, like most of the sled trails, you're not going to be able to go on. North of the French River, it's a little bit different because you do have a lot of private landowners and camp owners and hunting camp owners that use these logging roads and forest access roads as well. And they do cross with the OFSC, but they have an understanding that people are using these to access like frozen lakes for ice fishing and their camps and all that for security reasons. So those ones you can still drive on, even though they might be groomed. But it's just kind of, it goes without saying about being respectful to everybody else that's out there. And in the wintertime, it's obviously, you'll be going a lot slower on these roads. You don't want to damage them. Like they do still put a lot of time and money into it. But yeah, that's pretty much the French River is the border between when you can use a snowmobile trail with a four-wheel drive vehicle or not. Yep.
How about signage on the Crown land? Like, is that when you come to a piece of Crown land, are you going to see signs? Or we that place that you showed on here that we think we've stayed at, a few kilometers north of that is an area where you drive in, and there are big signs. It's almost I would think it's a land management area.
It is
of some sort.
I had one of these slides that got.
Like it says, you can come in, you can camp, you can follow the fire rules, all that sort of stuff. It's basically welcoming you there. Yeah. But you don't see that everywhere. That's for sure.
Yeah, so this sign here is what you'll normally see when you come into a huge plot of Crown land. They'll be usually right off the highway or whatever main access road, and that will tell you basically about the 21-day rule, like saying, you can move after 21 days. 21 days is the max you can stay there, and it'll also basically let any Americans that came over for the weekend to fish for walleyes, like they like to do, especially in the Lake Superior area, about that, and that they should have got their permit. But yeah, that's definitely a telltale sign when you come down a logging road and seeing those signs. You've just found the right place. There's going to be lots of spots to camp on those, like right off those roads. And those will be, unfortunately, the most popular areas that you get to, where you're going to see trailers sat off to the side and stuff like that. But okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, with hunt camps tends to be a little bit more intense.
Yeah, they can be pretty protective about the area, even though it's
spot for 20 years.
Yeah.
They tend to have the trailer in, before
Yeah,
the season
so
comes in.
with some of the hunt camps, like some of them have been given like 100-year leases, so that's going to span across multiple generations in the family, and they might have the land that their camp is on, like maybe less than an acre that's actually theirs, but that 200-300 acres of crown land around them, they consider that theirs, even though it's really not. So sometimes it's worth the, well, technically we have the right to be here, but other times, it might not be worth the conversation. If you show up and there's a bunch of Busch Light cans on the ground, it's going to be a judgment call. Yeah.
With overlanding being so big now, suddenly,
Yes.
right? Everyone's doing it. You find that crown land from before when this all exploded, you find that government's kind of restricting certain areas now, or because
for sure,
kind of overcrowding or whatever.
There definitely is. I mean, there's the closer you are to a big city like Sudbury or Parry Sound, those are the areas within about like 100 kilometers of that. You're going to find the people that just go up there for the weekend and really hammer down on the spots, or the people that want to drop their trailers off for the whole summer. And the government has obviously seen that. They've heard complaints about it, so that's where you're starting to get some other signs, like the one I just had up. I've started seeing along Lake Superior now, right along Highway 17, that say this area is under reconsideration. Like, it's open right now, but if people keep, just pooping off on the side, leaving their full bag of garbage to get ripped apart by wildlife, then they're just going to come in and that little access road right off the highway, they're just going to put a gate across it or tear out the road in general, just to prevent people from being there.
Monogamy was the same way.
Yeah. So it's definitely up to us as the people using it and want to use it to just take some ownership of it and just help in any way you can by taking your garbage and everybody else's garbage. Sometimes it feels like out with you.
Can I interject for just 1 second?
Go ahead.
The reason we're all here is because of this man right here.
It did start an
I would like to thank
discussion.
you. First of all, thank you for doing a presentation today. Big up for Mike. The inception of your Ontario Overland group, which I had followed for some time, very excitedly looked forward to doing something like this with all of you guys.
Yeah.
And it didn't exist. Right? And I remember I probably sent you a message 2.5 years ago.
Oh,
like,
God.
Hey,
Longer
man,
than that, yeah.
We're going to try to do something. We need your help. And Mike's been really, thank you for being gracious with our occasional, throwing it out there to try to get a few more people involved. And if you guys aren't members of Ontario Overland, please join the group. There's a really active and engaged group there.
Very
and
positive.
You do a great job of moderating the group too. There's not a lot of nonsense on there. So I would just like to thank you personally. And I hope we can get out on a trip sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
We appreciate you, buddy. Did a great job. Thanks.